The hot coffee hit Daniel Carter's face and shirt so suddenly that for a moment, the entire cafe seemed to disappear. Steam rose from his soaked clothes as he stumbled backward, clutching the small paper bag that contained the only birthday cake he could afford for his 8-year-old daughter. Laughter erupted behind him. His hands trembled, his eyes burned, and the words on the employee's name tag seemed to blur through his tears. But what nobody in that cafe knew was that the exhausted janitor they had just humiliated was carrying a secret that would soon change the lives of everyone watching. Daniel had been a single father for 6 years. Since his wife had passed away, every morning had begun with the same battle, getting his daughter Lily ready for school, preparing her lunch, working long hours cleaning offices, and returning home exhausted enough to fall asleep standing. He never complained. Lily was his reason to keep moving. She had learned not to ask for expensive toys or fancy birthday parties because she knew her father was doing everything he could. This year, she had made only one request, a small chocolate cake with strawberries on top. Daniel had spent weeks saving every spare dollar for that cake. On the morning of Lily's birthday, he had promised himself that no matter how tired or poor they were, his daughter would feel loved. After finishing an overnight maintenance shift at a nearby office building, he stopped at an expensive cafe where he had ordered a small coffee while waiting for the bakery next door to finish decorating the cake. His worn work clothes and tired appearance immediately made him stand out among the polished customers in suits and designer clothes. A group of wealthy employees noticed him sitting alone. They whispered, laughed, and glanced at his stained maintenance shirt. Daniel tried to ignore them. He only wanted to collect Lily's cake and go home. But when he accidentally bumped into a chair while standing, one of the employees loudly accused him of being careless. Another mocked his clothes. The cafe manager, more concerned about protecting wealthy customers than treating Daniel with dignity, ordered him to leave. Daniel quietly apologized, explaining that he was waiting for a birthday cake for his little girl. Instead of compassion, the manager rolled her eyes. Then came the moment that broke him. A woman in a burgundy business suit grabbed a cup of steaming coffee from the counter and deliberately threw it toward Daniel. The coffee splashed across his chest and face. His skin stung, his shirt darkened, and the paper cake bag slipped from his hand. The laughter around him became louder. Daniel bent down immediately, not because he was afraid of them, but because he was terrified the cake had been ruined. He carefully opened the box. The cake was still intact, although one side had been crushed. Daniel stared at it, imagining Lily's face when she saw it. His eyes filled with tears, but he quickly wiped them away. He had survived harder things than humiliation. What hurt most was knowing that his daughter had been waiting all day for the little celebration he had worked so hard to give her. If you believe kindness matters, that everyone deserves a second chance, and that someone's appearance never tells their whole story, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to Echoes of Kindness for more stories that remind us what humanity can look like. Daniel was about to leave when the glass doors of the cafe opened. The entire room suddenly became silent. A tall man in a dark suit walked inside with 2 executives behind him. Everyone recognized him instantly. He was Michael Reynolds, the CEO of the corporation that owned the building, the cafe, and several businesses across the city. Michael stopped when he saw Daniel standing there covered in coffee. Then his expression changed completely. He walked directly toward the exhausted father and looked at the maintenance badge hanging from his shirt. Daniel lowered his eyes, expecting another accusation. Instead, Michael recognized the name. Daniel had been the anonymous employee who, 3 months earlier, had found a serious electrical problem in one of the company's buildings during an overnight shift. He had stayed for hours after his shift ended, preventing what could have become a devastating fire. The company had investigated the incident but had never discovered who had acted so responsibly. Michael had been searching for that employee ever since. Now he finally understood who it was. The CEO looked around the cafe and learned exactly what had happened. His face became cold, not with anger toward Daniel, but with disappointment toward everyone who had laughed. The manager who had ordered Daniel out suddenly realized whose employee she had treated like dirt. The woman who had thrown the coffee stood frozen, unable to hide her embarrassment. But Daniel did something none of them expected. He didn't demand revenge. He simply asked whether the bakery could replace the damaged cake because his daughter was waiting for him. That simple request broke Michael's heart. Instead of merely replacing the cake, Michael personally arranged a beautiful birthday celebration for Lily. He also offered Daniel a permanent position with better pay and benefits, explaining that hard-working people should not have to destroy themselves just to give their children a decent life. That evening, Daniel arrived home carrying a beautiful cake. Lily ran into his arms, unaware of everything that had happened. When she saw the cake, she smiled so brightly that Daniel finally allowed himself to cry. For the first time in years, those tears weren't from exhaustion or pain. They were tears of relief. The next morning, Daniel returned to work not as the forgotten janitor everyone overlooked, but as a man whose dignity had finally been recognized. And the café where he had been humiliated changed its policies, trained its staff, and began treating every customer with the same respect, regardless of their clothes or income. Sometimes, the person we overlook is carrying a story of courage we could never imagine. Sometimes, the person we laugh at is the one who has spent years quietly protecting others. And sometimes, kindness doesn't need to be loud. It only needs to arrive at the right moment and remind someone that they still matter. If this story touched your heart, please support it with a like, share it with someone who believes in kindness, and subscribe to Echoes of Kindness so these stories can continue reaching people who need them. And before you go, leave this special comment: everyone deserves dignity. Let those words be a reminder that we should never judge a person by their clothes, their job, or the money in their pocket. Because Daniel didn't need someone to save his pride that day. He only needed someone to see his humanity.